Hello, everyone. All right, we are here with Case Watch. Let's see who is in the building. Hey, Antoinette, how are you? All right, you guys. So, as usual, when you come on, if you would give it a like, it'll help push this out a little further. And then we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, so tonight, well, first of all, I hope you have gone and you watched all my previous Case Watch, okay? Because with the Case Watch episodes, what I'm trying to do is give you guys a little bit at a time, okay? Hi, Kelly, how are you? Thank you for joining. So today, what I want to kind of touch on a couple different areas that I see that is ongoing now, especially with cases. One thing, if you're representing yourself, either as a pro se private, okay, excuse me, as a private, which was uh, one track, or if you're representing yourself pro se, which means that you're going in as the straw man, all right, and you're kind of going to beat them with their own statutes and with their own codes, which which you can do, okay, which you can do. Let me just say this though: these people, they lie. Okay, you have to understand that they are literally criminals. I am not lying to you. They are criminals. They will lie, and you really have to box them completely in. Whereas there's nowhere to turn. Okay, the lie is very, very evident. Okay, so this is what you have to do. And where we are in today's world, it is very easy to do because they lie from the beginning, they lie in the middle, and they lie at the end. So it's quite easy to entrap them. You just got to make the decision. But tonight, what I want to deal with is I want to deal with, first of all, once again, the importance of your evidence. I cannot stress it enough. We talked about this a little bit in other lives, but I want to deal with that tonight, and I want to deal with recusing a judge, because that's another thing that's starting to come up. What steps have to go forth to recuse a judge from your case, because it's evident that due process has not taken place. All right. So let's talk about preserving your evidence and the importance of that. You guys, I cannot stress it enough. When you first start out in a case, remember the court is in the paperwork. Everything is in the paperwork. You have court in the paperwork. When you actually go into the courtroom, you're just facilitating what has already taken place in the paperwork. That the paperwork is where you're duking it out, and you have to understand that. Okay. And when you are facilitating your paperwork, where they begin to get people, okay, is the paperwork is not right. And so what we're seeing on our teams over and over and over again is that some are going in as a private, and then they switch over and now they're talking public lingo. You can't mix the two. You cannot mix the two. They have to stay separate. So if you go in as an ASN, if you go in as a private, if you go in as an American, you have to stay that way the entire time. You can't jump over. All right. So how you start is very important. So that's the first thing. We kind of talked about that before, kind of understanding what path you want to stay on. But when you first begin, it's important that you have yourself organized and you understand what you're filing. Do not get into this if you do not understand what you're filing. It's best to just listen, just go with the flow of what they're saying before you just start filing stuff and you just don't know. I don't care even if somebody said, well, file this works. Well, file, you still need to do your own due diligence, because at the end of the day, you are the one that's going to have to explain this. You have to explain this when you are face to face with that judge, or face to face with this prosecuting attorney. You have to explain it. So you have to know what you're talking about, and you have to go in understanding how you are representing yourself. But from the very beginning, understanding, first of all, what you're filing, understanding the evidence. What evidence do you have? There's so much evidence, even in small cases. You have emails that's evidence. You may have pictures that are evidence. You may have phone calls that have been made, okay, and do understand about the one party, two party states, but you may have phone calls that's considered evidence, all right? You may have documentation that's considered evidence. Evidence is everywhere all the time. And what we're also seeing over and over again is that the evidence that you have of this wrongdoing that has been done to you is not organized. So before you even get into a case, before you, or if you're being sued, before you even present an answer, get your evidence organized. Understand your case. Okay. The evidence is crucial. It's crucial. It's crucial. It's crucial. And one thing you have to begin to understand is when you are in a court case, what wins your court case is clarity of what happened. Can you tell the story in a very clear manner of what happened? And then understanding you being bringing forth your evidence of what had happened and being able to articulate it in a very clear, distinct manner, right? Knowing they're going to lie. They're going to lie. So you have to be able to combat the lies still in a very articulate method that is with clarity and understanding. So this is what we're seeing over and over again, that people just are not organized. And so our teams are in a space now where we are helping with the organization of the case so the case can be presented in a very in a method that is understood, anyone can understand it. All right, that's very important, that delivering the information from the case can be understood very, very clearly. All right, that's one thing I wanted to talk about tonight. And I think it was in was it 2 weeks ago? I don't know. But go back to the previous episodes, and I think I talked about how to put your case in order, by the different folders. All right, so I think we've already dealt with that. All right, so I wanted to kind of stress tonight the importance of the clarity of the information that you're delivering and understanding that court is in the paperwork. Now, let's talk about tonight. I want to deal with those specifically getting a judge recused off of your case. All right. Do understand that there are different levels that we're dealing with here. So you got municipal courts, you got state courts, you got Commonwealth courts. It depends on where you live. So the rules may be a tad bit different. And that's why I remember we dealt with another episode in understanding how to pull the rules of the court. You need to pull the rules of the court. So also they're going to be state rules, okay, state guidelines. You want to pull those as well. But the individual courts, you want to make sure you have their rule books. And again, we dealt with that part a couple episodes ago. So getting a judge recused from a case. A lot of times what we're seeing now, these judges are ruthless, and they're the biggest liars I've ever seen in my life. Okay. Now, I'm not saying all of them. Of course, we're not going to put all of them in one basket, but I will tell you from what we're seeing, many of them are liars. Many of them are not following the rules. Many of them are simply just doing whatever the hell they want to do. Okay. Not understanding. I even had a judge say, I can do whatever I want to do, literally in those words. And I have proven to him you can't do whatever you want to do, because that's why you're sitting with a federal lawsuit right now down your throat. All right. So let's just be clear. So when we talk about getting a judge recused, there are steps that have to be done. All right. There are, if you're in your case and you're not being heard, if you file motions, if you're going in as a straw man, or even if you're going in as a private and you're not being heard, okay, you're being shut down. Your voice is not being able to be heard. You're trying to also remember now you want that court reporter to get everything down. So that's the first thing you're doing before you go in there, make sure the court reporter is taking everything down. Okay, let me put that out there too. That's so important. Before you even go in there, you want to make sure everything is being transcribed and documented. That's very important. So going back again to no matter how you're coming in, if you feel as though your due process is not it's not being taken seriously, okay, or you have not been given, or you're not being given due process. First of all, you need to understand what is due process. So you need to be able to articulate that, and this is why where the rules of the court come in. And you guys, the rules of the court, it's not hard. It is not hard information. I promise you, it's not. It sounds as if it's hard. I can't get it. It is not. Okay. And if you're in a space that you feel as though being able to defend yourself in court is too much for you, it's not the problem with the defense of being able to defend yourself. The problem that you're experiencing is called FEAR. It's fear. You have to get over your fear of courts. These people are people just like you are. Okay. They are the same as you. Okay. They have families. They have to eat. They have to go to sleep. They wake up. Okay. I mean, it's the same. They're same. They're the same just like you are. So greetings. Hello. But you have to get over your fear of courts, because it's going to be hard to implement any of this if you are afraid. Right? So now let's get back to understanding how to get a judge for cruise. This is going to kick off again if you are just not being treated fair, if your voice is not heard, if things things that you're filing, no matter how you're coming in to file it, because remember, if you're private, you file notices. If you are coming in as a straw man, you're going to file motions. All right. But either side, how you're coming in, if you are not being respected, if your voice is not being heard, if motions are being ignored, your due process is not being being treated fairly. Okay, the process, you're not being processed fairly as the other side. If the other side has an attorney and that judge is listening to everything the attorney is saying and not listening to anything that you're saying, there's a problem there. There is a problem there, and that's what due process looks like. And you can feel when you're not being treated fairly. You can feel that. So the steps that you want to take, first of all and foremost, you want to make sure you have the evidence. Okay, that is so important. Remember, it goes back to making sure we have our evidence. When I filed 10 motions and the judge did not hear any of the motions. The other side filed one motion and we went to court and he decided only on that one motion. That's due process. I'm not being allowed to speak, to articulate, to defend myself. And the other side has talked the whole time. That's due process. Nothing I have said is being taken into consideration, and I'm not understanding. They're not making sure I understand what they're even talking about. That's due process. All of that falls under due process. But again, I want you to make sure you go and you research what due process is in the court that you're dealing with and the state laws. Okay, that's so important. So you can be very clear. Yep, they broke that law. Yep, they broke that law. Yep, they broke that law. Not only that, there are rule books for attorneys, and there are a rule book called the canons for judges. Make sure you have a copy of that, because those canons are in the judge's book, and then the attorneys have to follow their own rules. All right. Listen, that was the first thing I learned when I started when I started with my cases. The first thing I mastered were the things that the judge could or could not do. The first thing I mastered is what the attorneys could and couldn't do, because it was easy for me to look at it and check off, okay, yeah, they're guilty of this, they're guilty of that. So that's another thing that you want to master, so you can be very specific in what that judge, that rule that judge or that attorney broke. Okay, so you can bring forth that and being very clear of your due process being violated. All right, so now the next steps you're going to want to do is you're going to make sure you understand what the recusal rules are for your court. That is another thing that's major. And I'm going to tell you why. Because in some areas, once that judge brings down the order for the court case, whatever the order is, sometimes you might only have 3 days to submit your recusal. Sometimes you might have 5 days. You need to see what it is so you can be ready to get that thing filed. Okay. A lot of times with the recusal, the judge cannot hear his own recusal case. We have judges now that are literally deciding their own recusal cases, which is totally against what the laws and the rules are. Okay, totally against it. So again, when these things are happening, this is why you have a perfect platform to appeal. Okay, so don't listen, just because somebody submitted an order on you, it does not mean it's over. You have the appeal. Okay, but you got to make sure that they're following the rules to appeal it. Make sure you have your transcript. Okay, make sure you have paid for the appeal. Okay, make sure you are understanding how this process works. All right, let me see what's going on here. We have a question or a comment. I see it on Judge Judy all the time. She doesn't let someone tell their whole side. How do you stop a judge that is not giving you due process? Again, get them recused. You're not going to sit there and fight with them, okay? Because then they're going to try to escalate it and say you're in contempt and now we're going to put you in jail. You need to make sure you put that statement on the record. My due process is being violated right now. You need to say it, okay? You need to get it on the record, for the record, and make your statement. You have to be very, very clear with that, because when you are in the right, they don't want you to talk. They are going to stop you from talking. They are going to interrupt you because they do not want you to get the truth on the record. And you need to say that. You need to get it on the record. So if you know you're in a court case and you're definitely not being treated fair, you definitely are not being heard, say that on the record. I'm not being heard. Court reporter on the record, for the record, and look at them. Make sure it's on there that I am not being heard and my due process is being violated. Get it on the record. And this goes again with what I was saying earlier of you cannot be afraid. You cannot be afraid to defend yourself. You cannot be afraid to speak. They're people just like we are, okay? But they know the game. They play the game because they realize they're in a game. They're in court. The ball is in their court. Then they push it to you and you push it back and they push back and they push back. That's what they're doing. They're playing a game because remember, everything is under the color of law. It's fake anyway. All of it's fake. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps you to understand how you navigate when they don't allow you to speak. Then you need to just make one blanket statement, even if you have to blurt it out. My due process is being violated on the record, for the record. I'm not being heard. Say it and be done. Okay? Because what you're doing now, you're setting the scene for someone to be the judge to be recused. Now, if they're hearing their own case, that's another violation. And all of that goes towards the appeal. All of that goes to where you can appeal whatever they said. Now, even though they have appealed it, they gave you an order that something has to be paid by a certain time or you need to do something by a certain time. This is when you're going to put in a stay too. You want it to be stayed until the appellate court hears. Now, what I'm saying is that these things are being violated left and right. Stays are being violated. Okay. And again, these are things that I'm telling you, you need to study, you need to articulate. So I'm not going to get too much into stays tonight, but I want you to understand the process of getting a judge recused, making sure you're looking at the judge canon book, make sure you're looking at the attorney rule to see what rules have been violated, make sure you understand what due process looks like in the court that you're in through their rule books, what they should or should not do, okay? And once you put in the judge recusal, whether you're putting in a motion or you're putting in a notice considering what side you're on, all right, what that looks like and what they should and should not do with that, okay? And if they're still doing things that the rules simply say that they cannot, then you're pushing that over to an appeal, all right? Let me drop the link to see if y'all have any questions or comments, because again, when we do these, I don't want to give you too much information because it can get confusing, but I do want you to understand the steps for preserving that evidence, because a lot of times, if you don't have all of the evidence preserved correctly, right? Okay, I just dropped the link in the chat. If you don't have the evidence preserved and you can't even present the case with clarity, with understanding, so you're not all over the place, you don't need to file. You cannot present your information in a confusing manner. Everything has to make sense. It took me 3 years to set my case up, okay, with clarity and understanding. I'm going to tell you why, because the corruption was so deep. The corruption was so massive. When I tell you this plan that all of these, because you remember I sued 25. I have 25 defendants in my case. Everybody had a part that they played. When I say played, remember they're actors, but they literally played a part in this whole fictitious story that was made up. Because remember I told you, they literally created a check in my situation. They created a fake check and put the debt on me, okay? And so they literally created this story, but it was hard for me in the beginning because, first of all, I didn't realize that the heart of men was that evil, that they would literally create an entire story that was not true and try to pin it on me. I didn't believe that the soul of men was that evil. And when I realized that the soul of men, yes, it's that evil, okay, it's all theater, okay? Then I had to begin to understand the story that was concocted on me. And then when I realized the story that they created, then I started preserving all of my evidence to prove what they had done with clarity. That's the clarity coming in. And making it very clear on who did what. That's how I got 25 defendants, okay? When I did all the W's, who did it, when did they do it, where did they do it, how they did it, and why they did it. I had all W's on every defendant. And then even before I went in with my case, I made sure not only that I had all of my evidence, I got my evidence authenticated. I had my evidence authenticated. So if you know court, you know that generally they wait later after discovery to bring in the evidence. Nope, I started my case with the evidence. When I got it authenticated, it is a proven fact that cannot be disputed. So I wanted to come through the door letting them know from the jump, you're fighting your fictitious stuff that you created that has now been proven to be fake. Okay? So I am telling you guys the same thing. When you go into court, you got to come in with more energy. You have to come in with more determination. You have to come in with making sure you don't have fear. Okay, and you're coming in with the clarity and making sure that you are presenting your case with an undoubted, I mean, I'm telling you, with no doubt whatsoever of the truth that you're bringing forth. You want no doubt anywhere. You want complete clarity and understanding to everyone, that you know what you're talking about and that they're liars, okay? Or you've been able to prove they're wrong. All right, you guys. So that's all I have for us tonight. I don't want these to be too long, because when I give you these little tidbits, I want you to go forth with it now and looking at your own cases and clearing up. And if you're at the stage that you haven't been treated fairly, go now and look at the steps you need to get a judge recused. Okay. And don't be afraid to make the move because they're liars. A lot of them now are proven to be liars. Now, there's some judges out there that are fair, that are doing the right thing. But when you come across the liar, set them straight. Let them know they've played with the wrong one. Okay. All right, you guys. I love you so much. I hope you learned a lot tonight. Did you learn a lot? Did you learn something tonight that you didn't learn before you came in? Give me a thumbs up. Let's see. Let's see if you learned something new tonight that you did not know prior to coming. Let's see. Yes. Oh, you're so welcome, Miss Kimberly. All right. Remember, we're going to keep just giving you the information just in very small chunks. And so for those that are here for the first time, happy Gregorian calendar New Year. I am going to celebrate my Happy New Year on the March equinox this year. I'm trying to get my circadian rhythm back, okay? And so I'm going to do all of my goals and everything at the right time this year. But for those who celebrate the Gregorian calendar, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. Have to get over fear, of course. Absolutely, you have to get over the fear. That's really your enemy right there. It's not even the course. When I got over my fear, because I'm gonna tell you how I got over my fear. I just got mad as hell. Literally, I that's literally what happened to me. I got so fed up with the bullshit. Okay, I'm sorry. I know y'all a little sensitive too. I'm trying to do better. 2026. Okay, that was my first curse word for 2026. I'm going to control this potty mouth, but y'all know when I get fired up, it just starts ripping, okay? But I got fed up. It is what it is, okay? I got fed up, and I had gotten to the point I did not care what took place, all right? Because they were going to hear what I had to say because I had put a story together. I was so fed up that all of these people had worked together to lie. They had worked together. I'm sorry. Okay. They had worked together to lie. Okay. So you just have to look at it. So if you're in the school and you go to How to Win in Court, I have a video in there that's showing what all the parts of the courtroom, what they mean and what they represent. And so when you go in understanding what everything means in a courtroom, the fear kind of goes away because you understand. You know that everything put in there is to play a part in this whole big theater that they're presenting in front of us that is fake. All of it's fake and it's already under a lie. All right. All right, you guys. So again, let me see. I was going to tell you guys, Tuesday, meet me back here. Does it start Tuesday? Yes, Tuesday, meet me back here. I'm starting a new show. Okay, it's called My Birth Blueprint. And I'm going to teach you how to really learn about who you are. What I'm seeing over and over and over again, people simply just don't know how to move. So for the one that just said, who was that? Afrolot, that said they're trying to get over the fear of courts. There might be something in your chart that has you in a paralyzed state where it comes to situations like this. And there's a remedy for it because when you understand where the fear is coming from, you know how to handle it. Okay. And so that's why I know now that it's time for me to teach you how to know who you are. So join me back here on Tuesday. And if you miss it, you'll be able to come back and replay it. But I'm going to try to do it every Tuesday at 12 noon, My Birth Blueprint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the very bottom. Okay. I'm going to start with the bottom knowledge of this because some of you have been taught that astrology is demonic. Okay. And that was done to us purposefully because our people were guided by the heavens. Okay. We were guided where the moon, to go through the moon phases. Okay. Even right now at a full moon, they bring in more doctors because more babies are born during a full moon. Okay. All of these things mean something. And our knowledge was taken back from us. It was excuse me, not taken back. It was taken away from us. And so what we have to do now is to get our knowledge back, to get our understanding back. We are all in a space of an awakening experience, right? But some of us just need a little bit assistance on kind of navigating this path correctly. And so this is literally going to be an introduction to who you are. Okay. And again, we're going to start with very small chunks from the beginning because some of you, this is very new territory for you. And I understand that. But once you get into it, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, why didn't anybody teach me this? Why am I just learning this? Okay. Thank you so much for telling them to put the likes up. How to typo, that's no status corrected, and they need to be hearing it. How to type, they're not status corrected, and they need to be hearing this. I miss what is that now? How to typo? I think I don't know. But I do see stat, and they need to be hearing. Yes, everybody needs to be hearing this information, right? Because it's going to help you kind of navigate just both systems. It's going to help once you learn who you are and you learn how to navigate your life. It's going to empower you to navigate no matter what system you decide to go with, the de facto or the de jure. Okay. It's going to help you to be able to, it's going to empower you because you're going to have clarity. Okay, Kimberly, she said, I'm sorry, I had a typo. Okay, I was trying to say they need to hear it, but they're not. That is correct. And they have a lot of court issues. Yes, yes. And this is the thing. Do you all know that when you go into a courtroom, it's all astrology in there? This is what I'm trying to tell you. They're doing it on us, but you don't understand what the heck is going on. When the judge comes in with the black robe, do you understand the judge is representing the planet Saturn? And the black robe comes in representing death. So you got to understand, you're literally being put in a ritual in the courtroom. The courtroom is set up to present a ritual. And this is what I'm telling you. So it's being done back to you, but you don't understand how to unravel what's being done to you because you don't have any clue, first of all, that they're doing it. You don't understand what they're doing, and you don't even understand who you are, so you can bring forth your power to trump everything that they're doing. Are y'all getting it? Do you understand the importance of this now and where we are, right? Do you understand why we need to do this at this point? Because it will help eliminate the fear. You wouldn't care when the bank opens up because you'll be able to navigate either system you want to navigate or both systems. You literally will. You won't have a fear of fake fiat because it's fake. Your power trumps that. Okay. So you'll understand any need that you have, it will be met. You have to believe that. But the problem is that you don't know how to manifest it because you don't know how to bring forth the powers that was gifted to you when you were born. And that's why I'm here to teach you. Okay. All right, you guys. So I will see you Tuesday, 12 noon, here with My Birth Blueprint. If you're in a school, you know, we got a whole lot coming up, okay, real soon, especially with Access Granted. That class is coming up to teach you about securities, all right, and how to access those court securities. Everybody else is getting paid. So now we need to teach you how to get your money back. Okay. All right, you guys. I love you so much, so much, so much, so much. And I'm glad that you learned tonight. And we will be back here in 2 weeks. Okay. The judge is the house of Cephas. Absolutely. Look, he's going deep already. All right, you guys. Until next time. Bye.